Okay, so I just want to talk to you about a phenomena that happens when you build a model from a photograph via a napkin drawing. So in order to build a model like this, you need some kind of a drawing to reference so that you can adjust things and because you want to capture the ratio here. I would have loved to have had a set of plans for this. If I was in a perfect world, I would have inquired. But that wasn't the plan. The plan is I wanted a tug. I like this tug, and I want to keep moving. I want to keep River Road rolling, and I don't want to get bogged down with it. And I love to build this way anyway. I've built in the past from so many plans. It's so nice to have a good set of plans and an agenda and the capital and everything to do it and time and etc. But it's a more relaxed hobby now, so if you can do this, like get an idea and then draft roughly like a napkin drawing or just a builder's draft, and then build a model that you feel represents the prototype that you're after, well then that's great, right? That's all that matters to me with this particular subject, okay? So it's just my own fun kind of build. But I want it to be reasonable too. And I'll show you an example of what reasonable can be or cannot be with some people. So I'm sort of cutting out the templates for the cab now. Okay. And you can see that my draft, like this is sort of what I've been building from. I don't have the whole boat here, but I feel that this cab is just a little bit too small. It's just not by much, but like the length of this cab is just not represented well here. I feel there's a little bit more to it. So what I did was last night when I was building the like the template, like this is the command bridge. Well, the command bridge is above this. This is the cab in here, if I can use that term. Here's the floor plate or the deck plate, you know, where the piece, the sides and everything all glued to. And this is a little bit smaller than this. And what I did was I redrafted this. I'll show you the difference. Like I redrafted it just a little bit larger. Okay. I might make these windows just a bit smaller, like these ones more a little bit closer to these, but somewhere in between these and these. And now it makes a little more sense because the actual, see this will go on, it's the same height and just a little bit longer. Okay. So that's subjective, right? I mean, I don't mind this, but there's something about this that just isn't right. Like the front of this is curved, which is what you see right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with this. I'm going to cut these out, make these windows a little bit smaller, and then I'm just going to move ahead with this. And hopefully things will shape up to my liking. I'm sure they will. I mean, you got to accept it at some point, right? Okay, I just want to talk about doing windows, you know, windows with the rounded corners. So this is 20 thou sheet. You can see I've drafted both sides of the cab. And you can see the 3 windows, and then there's an opening back here where the stairs go up. And they all have rounded corners on the inside. And I like to draft in the windows and then run a line like across between them so I can center my drill bit on the inside of the square. I usually just eyeball it. Like you can try to measure 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters in, but it's not going to be any different than if you just try to freehand it with a number 11 blade first. Okay, so here I'll just give you a quick example. So if you go to measure, okay, so I'm going to use a 2 millimeter hole, so I want to be 1 millimeter away. Well, that's a bit too tight, so I like to just take a number 11 and then just eyeball about 1.5 millimeters or so, just roughly. It doesn't really matter, right? Just so that you're inside 1 to 2 millimeters on the corner, and then just twist your knife, just start a general hole, and then start with a really small drill bit. Like I use this set here quite a bit, actually more than any set. It's a C set by Godhand. I love these little drill bits, especially for the thinner sheet. You can just twist them in your fingers. They're so sharp. So I start with the smallest bit first, and then I just start a hole, Now they're not going to be perfect, but you go to the next size and then the next size, and you just keep working each hole until you come up to the inside of the square line, regardless of the size of the drill bit, because you'll never notice the circumference of the hole at this scale. But at least you'll be inside the line. So then when you go to cut with a nice brand new 11 blade, like the line, like that, and all around, like all four sides, gently, you pop the windows out, they'll be beautiful. You can touch them up, with a small little round file or even a drill bit, by rubbing back and forth, because they're sharp all the way along the shank, right? And then you get nice, clean, nautical looking square windows, okay? Okay, so remember how I talked about, I'm not sure if I mentioned it in this series or not, but the two most important, well, the one most important factor is sharp tools, right? Like when you're doing this. So I have brand new number 11 blades on tap, and I load up a new blade when I cut panels like this. That's when you load up a new blade, right? We all like to stretch our blades, resharpen, I get that, whatever. But if you want a beautiful sharp tip number 11 when you're cutting out windows like this, things that matter, and a pencil, sharp pencil. Like even these lines here are probably a bit too fat, but they were just alterations. And I even altered this final because I drafted this on 20 thou plastic, right? Remember how I said just sand it with 400 or whatever just to knock the sheen off, and it drafts so easy on plastic. That's the beauty of evergreen once again. You can draft on it just like paper. So now I've cut these, but you can see how accurate these are, right? See, they're almost perfect. Like I drafted both of them like this. Okay. Sharp pencil. And using 1/2 millimeter increments. Like even sometimes a metric is not enough, but it's close enough. Okay, but don't underestimate 1/2 mil, like 0.5, even though this really only has 1 millimeters. So you just think about that. And then sometimes you can take one piece first and lay it on and just check it. But these were, I was fortunate here. I was really focused this afternoon. So I got these both done. And, they're going to go in like this. Okay. So it's coming along. It's getting there. You can sort of see the angle now too with the sides. Now I'm going to draft out of paper the front piece and then just do some dry runs and check and see how things line up, if all the angles are good and so on before I actually put this cab together. But I might just hold on for this for a bit, get the parts cut, and then like there's these ones here I want to deal with now too. These are the exhaust manifold stacks. They're done the same way. They're drafted and then scribed, right? Like it's just a matter of just snapping them off now and just cleaning them up. So I'm going to build these up. You could build these, I'll just mention this, and you could make these out of wood. Like if you got a disc sander and you got like some nice hardwood or whatever, you can make these out of that way too. But I want them to be hollow and scale on the top, etc. But you can still do that. You can attach plastic to wood if you want to do that. But I'm just going to build these up because it's always good practice to exercise modeling and building up, because it just means the subsequent parts you make and models get better. You get more experience, okay? Okay, so I want to show you how to do really nice, clean, symmetrical, curved corners. And what I mean by that is in relation to, where's a good, okay, so here's a good example of that. Notice these funnels here. See how they're curved? They have quite a broad bull nose on the corner, so to speak. On all four corners are these stacks that go up. So you can build up a rectangular box like this and then sand the corners round if you want. Excuse me. But they won't be uniform. And if you want a really nice, clean, crisp model, I like to do corners like that with this here, for example. This is number 248 quarter round 60 thou, means the thickness of the actual distance here. You see the symbol? All these evergreen scale models, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but it usually has a visual symbol on the profile of the material that you're using. So what I do is I take this and I line the edge of it, see? And there is a bit of a, see how you can catch your thumbnail there like that, like it sticks up a ways, because this is probably, well, I believe this is 20 thou material. So there'll be about half of that profile, or just under, sticking up. Now you want this side to be flush, so I'll show you how I do that. I take a piece of parchment paper so the cement won't stick to it, and then I just cut the piece to fit. These outside pieces you can do in one piece if you just put a bit of a crease in the bend there, or you can do it in two, but like for this one I cut the piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold that in my finger like this, okay? And then I'm going to take some cement, so watch how I do this. So I'm going to just wet this edge. I like to do it a couple of times because the first brush softens the plastic a bit. And then I'm just going to slip it in like that, and then I'm going to lay it down on the parchment paper and then wick in just behind that edge another wet stream of it. And then I'm going to take the, like a sandpaper stick like this, and I'm just going to push it gently. But the thing is, it's a quarter round, so it tends to want to roll. So if you lay this on top and then push in, it grips it. The sandpaper grips the quarter round and pushes it nice and tight into the edge. And you can keep it nice and level. And then you can push down hard on the plate so that you get it nice and flush on this side of the panel. See? That way, once it's dry, you can just give that a couple strokes with some sandpaper, and it just cleans up real nice. Now, when I go to build these stacks up, or these funnels, like the thickness, I'll be using a piece like this, which I've already pre-scribed, okay? And it's going to just lay in like that. So it's already done. The corner's already done, you see? And I'll glue that, and I'll line those lines up like that. And there's a bit of a bend right there. Okay, I'll just scribe that and fold that a bit, because you can fill that seam later, or that fold. And then you'll see that you'll have a nice, beautiful, symmetrical, sharp corner bullnose there on the model, okay? Okay, I want to show you how I put these funnels together, and they're sort of rectangular, but with some angles on them, right? So there's my draft. That's the side view. See that if you drew a rectangle around this whole funnel, then that would be a good beginning. And then you find out where these angles take place off of photographs. Like here's the rear one and then the side one. And when you're looking at it from the rear this way, there's only one angle right here, and it comes in a ways. This is totally straight vertical, okay? This is up to here and it goes in. And then from the side view, I don't have a photo handy, but anyway, it takes a shape like this. See? So that's been drafted on the plastic cutout. I've attached the quarter round on there. There's just a little bit of a seam, but I'll sand that later when they're built up. So I'll show you how I do this. So here's one that I started. So I take these end pieces, okay, and there's 1, 2, 3 bends there, okay. And the way to bend these is whatever way you want to bend them. Like if I want to bend this way, I just put a scribe line right here, just a light scribe, just very light, right? Just break the surface of the plastic. And then what you do is just hold it tight and gently bend it. Like don't snap it off. Just bend it so it opens up a bit there. That'll fill when you put cement on that and sand that later. Okay? And then this one bends the other way. So I just copied this line that's on here and I just made a little mark on the edge here and the edge there, and then drew another line and then scribed a line there. So that's going to bend a little bit this way. Okay? So that scribe ensures that the bend happens exactly on that line. See? See that? Okay. Then there's one more right here. Okay, I'm going to bend that, hold it tight, just bend it a little way. So there we have the bend in place. So let's jump to here. This is the same one. See, it's very subtle, but it's there. So what I do is I start the bottom with a bit of cement. But before you do that, remember what I said before? So these are going to be glued together. So take your 60 grit sandpaper and just rub over these edges and introduce grain so that the cement capillaries into that grain and it enhances the bond dramatically, right? Okay, because there's no shiny surface there. Like this will go on like this. Once I get this piece on, and then I'll put the other one on first, and then just cap it with this and build up my final stack. Now, see, this is all loose here. See there? Right? So I start it here. Get it nice and lined up right there first, right? If you have several pieces, just do them all like that or whatever. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make sure that this next run is lined up here. Okay? And also I'm going to do is take some cement and just flood into the seam like that. Okay? And you can do a little bit on this side too if you want. I'm going to push down on that. Okay. So that's good. So I'm just going to let that set for just a bit. And even if it's not square, you can square it up later. You can bend it for quite a while, for a few hours after with this cement. Okay. So then I'm going to take this next one. And I'm going to start it right here like this. I like to make a couple of passes of this just to soften that plastic a bit. And then I'm going to start this one like this. Nice and square on the bottom. So that line lines up to that side line right there. That's where the return begins. Sometimes it helps to just rub it, like move it back and forth a bit, just and press in, and it really grabs nice. Okay. Once you get a feel for this solvent, it's you'll never go back to any other, unless you have a special application. But for 95% of your build or so, it's all you really need if you're building with 100% plastic. So, okay, so this one here, now we've got this third panel. So there's this, okay, just to summarize quick. So you see how it goes like this, down like that, straight up again, and then angles down. So I've glued this one and this one, right? That one's still loose. So I'm going to take a little bit of cement, flood it in, flood some in there. Once you get this side done, then you're home free, right? Because you just line up the other side, because this is already anchored in place. And then when it sets overnight, you can just sand it with some 400 or 600 grit and clean up those corners, and they'll be beautiful. Okay, so now I want to pull that in tight, nice like that. Okay. So I'm just going to leave it open like that. I'm just going to run a nice healthy bead on there. And then I'm going to pinch that tight. You know, there's something about scratch building. I think I've mentioned this before, that when you build from scratch like this, you can actually use scale thickness in some cases where it matters. Like you're going to see that with the cab, the thin wall cab. Like most models in HO, for example, like locomotive cabs, you notice how thick they are? They're thick like this almost. Well, they have to be, because they got to maintain the integrity when they come out of the mold and they get painted and manufactured. They don't want them to warp. But no cab is scale on an HO locomotive. It's way too thick. It would be like 2 or 3 inches thick, which is, there's no way. It's only 1/4 inch steel on a locomotive cab. So you can do that with, when you scratch field, like here's a thin wall cab right here for the tug, right? It's way closer than if, like, this is only 15 thou. So they look way nicer when you have windows and it's built up and you look at it from different angles. You can see that it's scale and thin. It really enhances the model, the crispness of it. Okay, so that's got a nice bead on it there. So sometimes I like to just run just a bit on the outside just to soften that a little bit. And then just for good measure, just run another bead down the back side. Okay, I'm going to let that sit now for a bit. And then I'm going to do the other one. Excuse me, that means I can just scrape a few times and sand, and there's no filler. None. You don't need any filler. In fact, I rarely ever do use filler. If you're really careful about the assembly and you mushroom the bead, the melting of the plastic, as they'd say, when you create enough of a bead squeezing out of the seam, well, that's plastic, right? So it's just like grinding a weld down. It's the same fundamental. So this is getting there. And just to show you quick, just to close on this part, here, let me just zoom out for a bit. This stack fits in somewhere like this. This funnel, actually. It's actually part of the doorway into the galley there, entryway, through here. And then it gets sheeted on the top with another deck. And then there's a little bit yet to do on top, but I'm going to use thinner material than this because you see it. It's a fairing around the pipes, the exhaust pipes coming out, or the exhaust manifold, and it's much thinner than this, so I want to build that up so you don't see this thick plastic. But that's kind of the idea, and then, you know, it's getting there, right? Cool, huh? This is why I love scratch building. You know, you get to envision your own model, and you're always learning. You're always learning, and you make mistakes. Who cares? You know, you have to be tolerant to negativity, right? Don't be intolerant to negativity or fail. Be tolerant. Tolerate fail. Tolerate negativity within your space, and you'll overcome it all, and you'll grow. Profoundly, you'll grow in your skill set. There's a weird dynamic that happens. I can't really explain it over my whole career of modeling, that I always run into them, like they never seem to go away. There's always a new challenge or a new, okay, should I do this way or that way, or how do I solve this, right? It never ends, but the reward is tenfold when you push through. Like, you don't push the model aside and walk away. You actually push through the task, gain victory, and then put the model down and walk away. Don't walk away when you're frustrated. I mean, if you're frustrated, there's something wrong, because frustration is normal. It's part of the procedure, right? We all face it. So something's not going right. It's because you're facing a new challenge. So all you do is you sit back, take a moment, maybe get a cup of tea, coffee, a beverage, whatever, come back, but finish the task if you can. I mean, there's other extenuating circumstances. Sometimes you got to walk away, but try to overcome whatever the hurdle is and then sleep on it. Okay?